My name is Claire Williams. I'm 28 years old, and this is a real story not based on dreams, not fiction, not a nightmare. I woke up from it happened and it changed everything I thought I knew about reality, memory, and the things children sometimes see before we teach them what's normal. It began with my little sister Elle. She was 7 at the time. Elle was always quiet, deeply imaginative, with a sketchbook practically glued to her fingers. She'd draw for hours without speaking, her pencil gliding over paper as if it had a mind of its own. I never thought anything of it. Lots of kids draw fantasy monsters and doors to magical lands, but Elle never drew monsters. She only drew doors. And each one was different, tall, one's rusted, one's doors made of stone, wood, mirrors, bone. But what chilled me wasn't the variety, was the fact that every drawing had a name written beneath it. Not hers, not mine, not anyone from our family, just names. And dates. In morning, she showed me a drawing that made me drop the cereal bowl in my hands. It was a door, pitch black, no handle, no hinges, and underneath it she had written Claire, July 4th, my name, my birthday. That was 3 days away. What is this? I asked, trying to sound casual, but I felt my voice shaking. Elle didn't blink. It's your door, she said calmly. It's where you'll go if you forget me. Those words stuck like a splinter in my brain. Forget her? Why would I forget her? She was my baby sister, the quiet soul of our house. I laughed it off, ruffled her hair, and tried to forget the icy dread in her voice. But that night I found another drawing on my pillow, the same black door, only this time the date had changed, moved 1 day closer. It now read Claire, July 3rd. I asked Elle why she drew it again, and she looked at me blankly. I didn't draw that one, she said. The door is drawing you now. Something in me broke. That wasn't her imagination. That wasn't make-believe. Eve, that was something she knew. I tried to tear the paper in half, but it wouldn't rip. The page just bent, and when I let go, it returned to perfect form, not even creased. I ran downstairs to show Mom. But when I turned the page around, it was blank, just an empty sheet of paper. When I looked back at Elle, she was holding her sketchbook again and drawing another door. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, heart pounding, and at 3:17 a.m. I heard something, a scratch, then a slow dragging sound across my wall. I turned on the lamp, and my breath caught in my throat. A door was forming on the wallpaper, not painted, not imagined, etched, carved, black lines, deep grooves, as if invisible claws were cutting it into reality. I ran to the wall, touched it, and my fingers burned cold. That's when I realized what Elle had meant. The doors weren't drawings, they were warnings, timelines. And I had 1 day left. Next morning, the carved door on my bedroom wall was still there. It hadn't faded. If anything, it was deeper. What used to look like pencil scratches now resembled grooves burnt into the plaster, thick blackened lines forming a perfect frame. No handle, no nub, but a clear outline. And when I placed my hand on it, I felt something pulsing behind the surface, like it was breathing, like it was waiting. I stumbled back and grabbed Elle's sketchbook. I thought if I found the page, maybe I could destroy it again and do whatever was happening. But the sketchbook was gone, not in her room, not in the trash, not hidden under the bed. I asked her where it was, trying to stay calm, and she just stared at me with wide, steady eyes and said the doorkeeper took it. You weren't supposed to see your door yet. The who? I asked, my voice barely holding together. The doorkeeper, she whispered, her fingers tightening on her stuffed rabbit. He watches the ones who try to erase memories. He follows those who forget things they promised to remember. I laughed, a bitter, frightened sound. Elle, I haven't forgotten anything. This is insane. But as soon as I said it, I felt something twist inside me, because maybe I had forgotten there were blank spaces in my childhood time. I couldn't remember, and most of them revolved around Elle. There were years when she didn't speak, entire months where I remembered her being gone, but no one ever said why. Was that normal? Had I really never questioned it? I went back upstairs and stared at the door. July 3rd. Today, my name was still carved beneath it, Claire. But now something had changed. Below the name was a new line added overnight. Remember, or be replaced. That night, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I stayed in the room. I wanted to know what was behind it, whether this was madness or memory or both. I needed answers, so I stayed awake, staring at the lines as they seemed to quiver under moonlight, waiting for the moment. something would shift in at 3:17 a.m. The moment Cameth door opened, not with a creak, but a hum like 1,000 whispers behind a wall had suddenly been unleashed. Light poured out, not white, not yellow, but a dull pulsing blue that stung my eyes. I couldn't look away. Something in the air pulled me forward. Not hands, not force, just memory. And I remembered Elle standing at the top of a stairwell years ago, drawing frantically while screaming for someone to close the door. I remembered a figure, tall, faceless, draped in peeling wallpaper, stepping through it, reaching for me. I remembered Elle pushing me out of the way, screaming as the figure turned its attention on her. Instead, he had forgotten, not because I didn't want to remember, but because something had taken the memory and now it was giving it back. He stepped through the door. There inside wasn't cold, it was still timeless. The hallway beyond was impossible to long, to dark, with wallpaper that changed colors. As I passed, the portraits lining the walls were of me, but in each eye was different. Some versions were crying, some smiling, one had no eyes. I walked until my legs trembled, until the hallway ended in a room lit only by a single flickering bulb. And there she was, Elle, but not my Elle. This version was older, hollow-eyed, her sketchbook clutched tight in her lap, drawing another door. I knew you'd come, she whispered. But now you have to choose. Do you remember everything, or do you forget me again and leave? The walls around us pulsed. Footsteps echoed from behind the hallway. Something was coming, something tall, something wrong. My voice cracked. What happens if I choose wrong? Elle looked up, tears streaming down her face. Then the door draws someone else, and this time it might be Mom. I stood frozen in that flickering room, the only sound a rhythmic, almost heartbeat-like hum from the walls. Elle sat cross-legged in the center, sketching with the same urgency I remembered from our childhood. Her fingers were stained black with graphite and something darker, something not ink. Behind her, the door she'd just drawn on paper slowly shimmered into existence on the opposite wall, forming in real time, the same way my own door had scraped into reality, line by line, as if the paper bled into the world around it. I whispered, "Is that mine?" But Elle didn't look up. She just said softly, "No, it's hers." Before I could ask who, the hallway behind me groaned. That sound again, like wallpaper peeling off skin, heavy. Footsteps closer. I turned. Nothing. Shadows flickered, but the source wasn't visible. Not yet. I backed up, heart hammering. Elle, what's coming? Finally, she looked up. The doorkeeper, she said. He doesn't come for the ones who remember, only the ones who leave with parts of themselves still locked inside. It hit me then. This wasn't about physical doors. This was about memories, about guilt, about the things we let go of because they hurt too much, and what gets born in the silence we leave behind. I crouched beside her, breathless. Why me? Why now? Her face softened. Because you were the first to forget me, and if the doorkeeper finishes what he started, you'll be the first to forget everything else. Suddenly the room flickered like a reel, skipping frames in an old movie. I blinked and we were somewhere else, the same room, but older, dustier. There were drawings all over the floor, now hundreds, thousands each one. A door with someone's name beneath it: Michael, Jessica, Yasmin, Dante, some crossed out, some smeared, all marked by time and sadness. At the center lay an enormous sketchbook, bigger than a suitcase, and when I touched it, it opened by itself, flipping page by page faster than my fingers could follow, until it landed on a blank sheet. No, not blank. My face was sketched there, eyes closed, mouth open, like I was screaming below it. Claire, final entry, door unsealed. Lady stepped back, shaking. I'm still alive, I said out loud, like it would protect me. I haven't forgotten anything now. I remember you. I remember what happened. Elle nodded slowly, standing. Then prove it, she whispered. Draw your own door. What? She handed me a stub of black charcoal, as ice, heavier than it should have been. If you remember right, it opens the way out, she said. If you don't, it opens something else. I swallowed hard and kneeled. My hands tremble. I placed the chalk to Wealth lines came easily, like my muscles knew the shapes. Before my mind did it, I drew the curved arch, the mark above it, a crescent scar. I remembered from the hallway of our childhood home. I added the missing piece, the ribbon that had blown under the door that night. Elle disappeared. I drew everything, and when I was done, the wall opened, light, not cold, not blue, not threatening, just soft sunlight. The smell of grass whined free, doom bit. Then the whisper came again, remember or be replaced. I turned to Elle. Let's go. She didn't move. Elle, let's go. Tears formed in her eyes. I never left, and from the shadows behind her the doorkeeper stepped forward, towering shapeless, its face hidden in the folds of parchment graphite V. Eyes crawling across its limbs. Like sketch lines come alive, it raised a finger, and suddenly my door began to close. Ronnie grabbed Elle's hand, he pulled. She resisted for a second, then followed a dove through the door as the world behind us collapsed into black dust, and drawing seat woke up gasping on my bedside light bit. Something was wrong. The wall next to me had a new door carved into it, and this time it had my mother's name on it. Morning, I saw my mother's name carved into the wall. I thought maybe the nightmare had followed me home. I stared at it in disbelief. 5 letters burned into the paint with the same brutal clarity as mine had been. Marie underneath in smaller strokes that pulsed. When I blinked was a date tonight, not a birthday, not a birthday, no, a warning, a deadline, and just below it the words, "One will forget. One will be taken." I ran to my mom's room, heart pounding. She was there making tea, humming softly, completely unaware that the house was now holding her name to. I stood in the doorway watching her, feeling like a stranger in my own life. What was I supposed to say? Hey Mom, remember the time my sister almost got erased from existence by a door that our walls apparently grow? No, she'd never believe me, no one would. But then Elle walked in, and what she said next made me realize that belief didn't matter a name. Or she's next, Elle whispered, staring past me at the kitchen wall behind Mom. You took too long to remember, so it moved to her. Mom turned around and smiled like nothing was wrong. You to look like you've seen a ghost, she joked, but I couldn't laugh because behind her the wallpaper began to curl at the edges. That's how it always started, quiet, peeling like memory being slowly lifted off the surface of the world. He pulled Elle aside. How do we stop it? I asked, voice shaking. How do we break this? She looked older today, weary like each door she'd drawn aged her a little more. You can't stop it, she said. You can only redirect it. Someone always gets forgotten. The doorkeeper needs memory to feed on. If you won't forget, someone else will have to. My blood ran cold. You mean I have to choose? She nodded, and that's when the sketchbook reappeared. It was sitting on the hallway table, the big one, the master book. Its leather cover was cracked and flaking, and it pulsed faintly. When I got close, when I opened it, the pages fluttered wildly before landing on one already half-drawn, a door, a new one, my mother's silhouette sketched in the center, half-faded. Like she was already being sketched out of existence. I cried out and tried to erase the drawing, but the graphite bit back. It burned under my touch. I looked at Elle. Help me, please, she hesitated. You help me leave my door. Someone has to stay behind to close it. If we pull her out, another will be pulled, and that's how memory works here. Balance. I looked around, panicking. Then what if I go back in? What if I take her place? Elle's eyes widened. That's not how it works anymore, Claire. You were already marked. You crossed back through the system knows you. If you step into her door, you won't come out again. It was then that I saw the first real proof that my mother was fading. She walked past a mirror, and her reflection didn't follow, just blank. Glassy fell to my knees. I couldn't lose her, not like this, not like this. And then the worst part came. She began forgetting me, first my name, then my face, then Elle's. Every time she looked at us, her eyes grew more puzzled. You to she whispered, are you guests? The wall groaned. The door was open. Indeed, did the only thing I could. I turned to Elle. Draw mine again. What? Draw my door, replace hers with mine. But Claire, N-O-W. She grabbed her pencil and began to sketch furiously, desperately, my name etched into the paper again. And the moment the graphite finished the curve of the doorframe, my walls screamed. The house didn't like this. A draft exploded through the hallway. The mirror shattered, lights burst, and then the door on the wall vanished. So did the Namamum. Blink looked at me. Claire, why are you crying? I sobbed and hugged her. Bit behind me, I felt ith helmet cold familiar. Turned, and in the hallway a new door had apparatus different from the restand. This time it was blank. No name, no deity, just a handle waiting. The hallway was still, the air heavier than silence should allow. The new door, the one with no name, stood upright like it had been waiting for years. Instead of seconds, it didn't shimmer like the others. It didn't groan or whisper. It simply was solid and labeled. But when I looked at it, I felt recognized, not seen, not watched, known, as if something on the other side had been building this door. For me, in secret, waiting for the moment I broke the rules, traded names, altered fate. Why is it blank? I whispered to Elle. She didn't answer. At first, she stared at it, her breathing shallow, her eyes wide. Then, almost like a confession, she said, I tease a memory trap, a door for the nameless. Once someone steps through, the world forgets they existed. I staggered back so no one would remember me. Not even you? She hesitated. Not unless I held onto a piece of you. I reached for her hand, then hold on the door. Began to breathe, not physically, there was no movement, but I felt its inhale like an enormous ancient thing on the other side had sensed hesitation and was waiting for a decision. Then something shifted from the other end of the hallway. Came a scratching sound, not a footstep, not claws, but the sound of charcoal on paper. A shadow approached, dragging something behind it. It stepped under the hall light, and I felt my knees buckle. It was me, or almost a version of me. Same eyes, same mouth, but completely drained of light. A pale husk, thin and flickering at the edges, like her outline had been erased over and over. She held Elle's original sketchbook, the one that had gone missing. Her mouth didn't move, but a voice echoed into my skull. You took someone else's door. You broke the balance. You are now an unassigned memory. I backed away, but the door behind me clicked open. I hadn't touched it. Elle hadn't. It had opened on its own. The light that poured out wasn't blue or yellow or gray. It was pure white, not warm, not cold. Tithe echo voice spoke again. The door with no name only opens for one who cannot be placed. I turned to Elle. I don't belong anywhere now, do I? She swallowed hard. Not in this timeline, not in any of them. My mind raced. I remembered all the other sketches I saw back in that memory space. Hundreds of names, live stores. Were they all like me? Broken pieces, forgotten on purpose, traded for others. I looked at the pale version of myself, still holding the sketchbook. Her eyes were begging me, but not to be saved, to be remembered. That's when it hit me. That wasn't a monster, that was the version of me I said one I forgot. Elish had been waiting in the memory trap all these years. Salome took a breath. Can I switch with her? I asked aloud. Stared. What? I'm the one who forgot. She stayed behind. She held onto the memory. I'm the imposter. The doorkeeper's echo returned. Trade is allowed, but the sketchbook must decide. Elle knelt beside the pale version of me. Slowly she opened the sketchbook. Inside was a blank page. She handed me the pencil. I wrote my name. I handed the pencil to her. She wrote hers. In the moment we finished, the pages turned black. Ink poured out from the book like blood, soaking the floor. The nameless door creaked, groaned, screamed. It shut just before either of us could step in. But the pale version of me, she smiled and slowly faded away into me. Scream had fell past. Audi woke up 2 days later in the hospital. They said I'd collapsed from exhaustion, that I was found unconscious at home clutching an old moldy sketchbook. No one remembered buying them, never mentioned the doll. Didn't speak for days, and when she finally did, she said one sentence: the balance is watching. The hospital released me after 3 days, and the world felt wrong, like everything had shifted half a step out of alignment. My mother smiled like nothing had happened, offering warm soup and soft reassurances. Elle barely spoke. She just sat near the window with her knees tucked to her chest, watching the backyard as if waiting for something or someone to come out of it. But what disturbed me more than anything else was the sketchbook. It had followed me, not literally walked behind me, but it was there back in my room on my nightstand, as if it had never left. The pages were dry now, crisp clean, but I didn't dare open it. Not until the dream started again every night at 3:17 a.m. The cursed time, the hour when the first door opened. I began to dream of stairs, endless stairs spiraling down beneath our house. Sometimes I was holding a candle, sometimes a shard of mirror, sometimes nothing, but the stairs always led to a room I never reached. I would wake up before I saw the door at the bottom until the sixth night I saw it, and it was blank again, but not clean blank, not like it hadn't been named, like it had been scrubbed, violently erased layer by layer, and whatever had been written was buried deep under graphite scars. I touched the surface, and in the dream my fingertips came away bleeding ink, and I knew this was a door that was never meant to be drawn. It existed outside the rules, outside balance, outside Elle's world, and the moment I recognized that, I woke up with that same black ink under my fingernails. He couldn't stay silent anymore. He confronted Elle, cornered her in the hole. We held up my stained hands and shouted, "You said the doors come from memory, then where does this one come from? I never knew this door." Her eyes flicked to my hands, and something like terror settled into her features, not fear for herself, fear for me. "Claire," she whispered, "you weren't supposed to remember that one. What are you talking about? I never had that memory." She stepped forward, her voice trembling. "You didn't. That door, it belongs to someone else." My throat dried. "Who?" "The girl before you." The words froze the air. "What do you mean, before me? I've always been." "No, Claire," she interrupted, tears starting now. "Not always. You're the third." He couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. My heart pounded like it was trying to outrun what I'd just heard. "You mean I replaced someone?" She stepped through that erased door when she was 13. She made a deal to save our family, but she couldn't come back, not full. Why? The balance brought in a replacement. Someone who could carry the missing space without noticing it. "You're saying I'm not me?" Elle took my hand. "You're real now. You've made your own doors. The balance doesn't care where you started, it only cares about equilibrium." I pulled away, my skin crawled, my memories, my birthday, my school, my laughter, all suddenly felt like borrowed clothes stitched together by someone else's thread. "I need to see it," I whispered. "I need to see her door." That night I descended the stairs, not in a dream this time, but wide awake. Our basement was quiet still, but there was a section of the wall, one that looked wrong. The paint was newer, the drywall smoother, like someone had covered something up. I scraped at it with my nails, then a knife, then my hands. Beneath the plaster was wood, and carved into it so faint I almost missed it were the words, "Avery, do not remember." Avery, that was her Namami name. Before minutes, suddenly I saw flashes, her hand reaching through the red door, voice screaming, "I'll take her place." A girl erasing herself with a smile, and me waking up in a bed that wasn't mini. After I scraped Avery's name from the basement wall, the world around me didn't just fade off, it began to break. The temperature in the house fluctuated without logic. Clocks, reversed mirrors, refused to reflect. My mother began to forget where the kitchen was, where her room was, who we were. Elle stopped talking entirely. She just kept her sketchbook close, flipping through blank pages, shaking her head in quiet terror. Whatever I had unearthed, the original name, that first erased door, had rippled through the fragile web holding reality together. Because I wasn't just a replacement, it was a fracture. I couldn't let it continue. If this really was about balance, then the only way to restore it was to complete the loop, to finish what Avery began. So at midnight, I returned to the basement and traced her name back into the wood slowly, carefully, as if calling her back. The moment I pressed the final Y into the surface, a vibration ran through the floor. The wall cracked open, and behind it was the oldest door I had ever seen. No frame, no carvings, just ancient black wood and a single knotted handle, shaped like a quilled ribbon. It didn't open. With a groan, this time I sighed, like it had been waiting centuries since I saw the room of origins. Every door ever drawn was there, spiraling endlessly upward in a tower of memory and consequence. Doors with names I'd never heard, some labeled with entire families, some with dates that hadn't even happened yet. But at the center of it all, suspended above the ground by threads of ink, was Avery. Not a ghost, not a body. A memory was made of sketches and lay constantly redrawn, her features flickering between childhood and adolescence. She saw me and smiled. "You made it," she said. "I remembered you." I whispered, "No," she replied gently. "You became me." And then she lifted her hand, and in it a blank page, and folded on side, had my face, the other her two girls drawn over the same outline. "I gave up my place to keep Elle safe," she said. "But something had to replace me. Something strong enough to carry a broken memory without breaking." "I'm not strong," I said. "You are now," she smiled, "because you chose to remember." And with that she offered me the page. It was glowing now, not with light, but with truth. My face and hers began to merge, not erasing each other, completing each other. For the first time I felt whole, not a shadow, not a sketch, not a replacement. A story finally written in full. Room began to collapse. Then the tower of doors crumbling in reverse, folding back into the dark. I clutched the page to my chest and ran back through Avery's door, back up the stairs, back into the house. And when I emerged, morning had arrived. The walls were clean, no doors, no names, just silence. Me mother was humming in the kitchen again, but her eyes were clear, focused, present. Elle was at the table scribbling in a fresh notebook. No doors, just flowers and stars balance rust red in me. I was still Claire, but sometimes when I look in the mirror, I catch a flicker of Avery's smile in Minna, because the story never ends. It just waits for the next one to forget. Thank you for watching this video. Had part of this story gave you chills? Did you feel the twist coming, or did it catch you off guard? If you love this journey through memory, identity, and shadows that watch from walls, make sure to subscribe, like, and share to support the Dark Life Side Diaries. This story is written and edited by Dark Life Side Diaries.